All glories to Mother Ratasha. All glories to the religion of love. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to our Supreme Lord. O Lord God, please help us live out these teachings and be an example of love in the world. Jai. All right. So today is a special class. It'll be our first time giving class or sharing the message of God using the subject matter brought up by the community in our class suggestions channel here on the online center's server, which is pretty cool. And we have for our topic today the meaning of words. So as we're taught, say what you mean what you say, and may what you say be clear. So it's important to understand what is it we're actually meaning when we say certain things, especially when it comes to religion, spirituality, spiritual life. After all, especially for one surrendered unto God, we are giving our entire life unto this process of devotional service. So we're not meant to be blind followers. Not at all. We must understand what it is we're doing, what it is we're following, what it is we're practicing, how, why, from whom, etc. So there's a number of examples in the Religion of Love book where words, which may be terms of contention or confusion, or even trigger words, are clarified by Mother Ratasha in the context of these teachings, such as the word religion, the word sin, the word love. And we'll get to those as they're on our list of about 4 dozen words, and the majority of which has been offered up by the community. So let's just jump into it. The first one, belief. Oh, and I forgot, my bad. I didn't share the screen, the PDF. 1 second. Let me do the screen share. Okay, now you guys should be able to see it. Great. Okay, so the first one, belief. What is belief? Seems kind of simple of a word, but belief more or less is, let's say a parent tells their child that if you eat your veggies, you'll grow up big and strong. The child doesn't know, doesn't have experience of either growing up or getting big and strong, but they take what the parent says to them to heart, and they have conviction that it is true. So they believe that if I eat my veggies, I'll grow big and strong. This is their belief. So it's a conviction in something that you do not have direct experience of. So this is the same thing as faith. So we have faith, for example, which is how all of us begin in spiritual life. We have faith. Faith in God, faith in something greater beyond ourselves, faith in a greater purpose of life than just eat, sleep, mate, defend. So we have faith, but greater than faith, which is the beginning of spiritual life, is truth. And truth is the realization or the experience of knowledge within yourself. In other words, knowledge is only second-hand knowledge. The knowledge of others, the knowledge of books, knowledge from God, and we have a theoretical understanding of it until we apply it, we practice it, and we experience it by revelation within the heart ourselves. And then we live that knowledge, and that is wisdom. But to get from faith to the experience of truth, that is the journey of spiritual life. That is what spiritual practices are for. So that's belief. The next one is reverence. What is reverence? Reverence is a profound respect often in a mood of awe and humility. So when we have reverence for something great, something holy, something wonderful, and in spiritual life, that is most often characterized by the mood of a devotee or a faithful person, religious person, for anything holy or something that has deep meaning to them, or anything of God, or, of course, God himself. We have reverence. And when you're in a mood of reverence, you're often on your best behavior. No nonsense. I wouldn't say it's a mood of seriousness, but it is a mood of no nonsense, where, you utmost respect and care and honoring. All right, the next word is theism. And I know there's many ways that this word can be defined. In fact, if you Google it right now, you'll come up with maybe half a dozen different explanations, but more or less, the gist of it, theism, is the belief in God, or that there is a God, basically. Or in a wider context, the belief that there is something divine beyond our current material experience, something beyond ourselves, something greater. So the belief in a divinity. And of course, it often is depicted as the belief in God. And on the flip side, that word atheism. Atheism is the belief in no divinity whatsoever. There is nothing divine, nothing beyond, greater than myself. There is no God. This is the common understanding of atheism. So basically the belief that there isn't God. However, the Vedic scriptures actually give a broader definition to the term atheism. It's true. And a theist is someone faithful to God, and an atheist is someone who is against God. So not necessarily someone who doesn't believe that there is God, but even someone who is deliberately against or contradictory or in open rebellion or inimical towards God. And there's a lot of demonic personalities and characters throughout the Vedic scriptures which emphasize this umbrella category of belief. So that would be an interesting other take. So technically speaking, and we'll get to this later, actually. So remember that thing about atheism and the broader spectrum when we get to the later on when we talk about angels and demons. So the next word is polytheism. So polytheism is the belief in many gods, or a pantheon of gods. And I know pantheism can also mean something else, but an example of polytheism would be like the Greek gods, ancient Greek, ancient Romans, the Norse gods, like Odin and whatnot. Olaf, can you check that? Someone just joined the server. Maybe they'll even join us for class. We'll see. Okay, thank you, love. So that's polytheism, the belief in multiple gods, or basically not believing in one central supreme being, which is what monotheism is. Monotheism is a belief that there is but one God, one supreme being, and everything and everyone is subordinate to that one God. And this is the verdict of all the revealed scriptures. This monotheism. One God, one supreme being, and we are all servants of the one God. But this is different than monism. That's something else. Monism is not the same thing as monotheism. And monism is the same thing as this next term, impersonalism. And I know personalism and impersonalism. If you look up these two terms on Google, you'll come up with some different philosophies. But according to scriptural references, and from these I'm mostly basing what I'm sharing off you from the Vedic scriptures, primarily Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, the Puranas, etc. Impersonalism, or monism, is the belief that the supreme absolute truth has no form, and that anything that does have form is but an illusion. And they believe that in the ultimate scheme of things, we are all one. This is monism. Like, mono means one, poly means many. So monism means the belief that everything is one, that we are all one. And this belief is atheistic. Because rather than believing or having faith in one God, it is the belief that we are all divine, we are all God. I'm God, you're God. And now you can see how this is very naughty. This is not a good mentality. But this is a very prevalent belief in the East, actually. In fact, the majority of philosophy taught in India today is impersonal, or monistic, actually, which is contrary to what the Vedic scriptures actually teach. What they teach, actually, is the supreme absolute truth, is that there is a personal God. And this also is in line with the Abrahamical scriptures, the Tanakh, the Bible, the Quran. These all fall in line with this mentality that there is but one supreme being and he is a person. And
Hi, Hassan.
oh, hi Haifa, would you be so kind as to mute yourself? We're in the middle of class.
Okay, sorry.
Are you all right? So, God is a person. That's the meaning of personalism. God is an individual being, a supreme individual being, and we all have a relationship of love and service with God. And as I was saying, this is the same belief of the Abrahamical scriptures when they worship God, the Almighty Father, God being a person. And we'll get more into descriptions of God further down the terminology. So the next word, religion. What does religion mean? Well, the popular understanding of what religion is it's a group, right? It's a clique, it's a denomination, it's a culture, it's something you belong to, right? This is the idea that we commonly have in this world of what religion is. And we see all these different religions by how different they all appear and act and speak and behave, and etc., etc. So on the surface, it appears like there's so many different religions. And they're all different. And this is a cause of great contention and often leads us to a lot of violence and fighting in the world. This religion, that religion, our nation, your nation, our people, your people. This more or less is politics. But Mother Atasha, in the Religion of Love book, on the very first page, gives this definition of religion. Religion is meant to be understood in its original meaning. Re, which means again, like repeat, recycle. And ligio. Ligio means to link. So religio means to relink. It is the relinking process within your heart of coming back again to love of God. So by this definition, religion, this relinking process, is an internal thing. It's nothing external. It has nothing to do with groups of people Nothing to do with culture, languages, nationalities, borders. It's the process and the practices in your heart, in your life, coming again or reawakening to that forgotten, loving relationship of love with God. This is actual religion. And those who are wise understand, therefore, ultimately there is only one religion. Only one. Love of God. There has only ever been one religion. It may appear different on the surface, given according to different language, customs, cultures, etc. But that is like digging a well. If you dig a well in a rocky place, you need a certain type of equipment, breaking the rocks, heavy-duty drills. And if you need to dig a well in a sandy place, you need totally different looking equipment to, dig through sand. So, on the surface, they appear like two totally different projects happening. But the goal of both wells is the same, to reach water. And water, once reached, is water. So it is with religion, always given in remembrance of God by his various messengers, sharing the same one internal, eternal message of God, although due to the times and circumstances, it's related differently to different people. You explain the message of God to the Israelites who just came out of bondage from Egypt, a little different as you'd explain it to, the Hebrews in Jerusalem, or different to the scattered tribes of Arabia, or to the kingdoms of ancient India. The explanation of the teachings may differ as you speak to the level of the listener, but God's messengers always are giving God's message, which is of love, which is a remembrance of God and coming again to service and coming home to God. So the inner message is always one with religion. That is why in the religion of love we say we're not a new religion. No, we're just trying to practice the heart of religion, which is love of God. And there's a nice analogy, if you've probably heard this, that religions are likened to many different rivers, and all the different rivers flow to the same one sea being God. Well, so too, Mother Tasha says that, if different religions are like rivers, then what we are sharing is just the water, the essential thing to be a river, pure knowledge, pure message of God, without the external things of custom and culture, and etc., etc. So that's religion. It's a process in your heart, relinking to God. Now the next word, philosophy. What is philosophy as opposed to religion? And when this word comes to mind, what do we think of? We think of some old Greek dudes like Plato, Socrates, Aristotle, Confucius, more modern people like Nietzsche, all these philosophers, right? Now, two ways I can explain philosophy. For one, in a broader term, philosophy just means teaching. So even in religion, even in bona fide message of God, we say, do you understand the philosophy? So in a broad aspect, it means teaching. But in the religion of love, and again, speaking about all these philosophers out there and all their different teachings that may not be exactly as it's said in the scriptures, it's written that man may make philosophy, but only God gives religion. So in order to be considered a philosopher, to be remembered as a philosopher, you have to come up with something new. That That's essentially it. You have to create something new, some new idea, some new thoughts, something new that stands out and like, oh, and gets everyone thinking, what a philosopher, right? This is philosophy. But real religion is not about making something new, but about coming again to what is true. And this ties into the next word, or two words, mental speculation. Mental speculation. So you get the idea, mind, mental, and speculating, or guessing. So mental speculation is coming up with your own ideas, using your own mind and intelligence, based off of whatever observations or experiments or experiences that you have gained through the senses of your body, and coming up with some supposed knowledge and accepting that as fact. That is mental speculation. Now, the problem with mental speculation is that it's inherently flawed, because it starts where? The mind. And the mind itself, conditioned in material nature, we'll get to nature soon, has four principal defects. The mind is not the self. And again, when we get down to soul and spirit soon, that will be clarified, but we are not the mind, nor are we these bodies. We are spirit soul. The mind is material. It is a part of this body, this material package that we're currently embodied in, and the mind is the hub of all of our senses. And the mind, being material, like all material things, is limited and temporary. And the limited and temporary cannot fathom the unlimited and eternal. It's like trying to watch a 3D color movie on an old black and white television tube. It won't work. It can't play it. It doesn't work properly. It's a crude example. So mental speculation. What are those four defects? We've covered them before, but I'll cover them again. One, the mind is prone to mistakes. Anyone in conditioned life is bound to make a mistake, at least once in their life. We all make mistakes. Number two, the mind has imperfect senses. We don't have perfect memory. We don't have perfect sight, seeing something far away and really make something not perfect, like eagle eyes. Our senses are not perfect. They are also prone to mistakes, and they are quite lacking in many capacities. The third defect is the propensity for cheating. This is what the mind does. We have a propensity to, cheat others, even cheat ourselves. Little fibs to ourselves, or cut corners here and there, or deliberately try and cheat others to get a little something for your own sake, your own gratification, your own come up. So this is a propensity of the conditioned mind. And the fourth defect is being prone to illusion, accepting something for what it is not. This is another fourth defect. So anybody in conditioned consciousness with the mind cannot come up with perfect knowledge simply by your own mental faculties. Remember, we're speculating. Of course, this is the guessing work. There's nothing wrong with pondering, obviously. Being skeptical is a sign of intelligence, trying to figure things out, asking questions. These are good things. Trying to understand what is what. Seeking knowledge of the absolute truth. This is a great thing to do. However, when you accept the thoughts in your head without any credible backing, whatsoever to be absolute truth, that is mental speculation, and that is going to derail us from the path back to God. And when we share ideas that, again, coming from our mind, that aren't actual fact, just they're only fact in our head, and we push those, we preach those to others, that's when we're sharing our mental speculation with others, and now we are philosophers. But there's a big difference between a philosopher and a devotee. A philosopher, through the ascending method, thinks I can elevate myself through my mind. I'm going to ascend to divine consciousness through my own prowess, my own intelligence, my own abilities, me. And the Vedic scriptures, especially the Bhagavad Gita, goes into this, and they explain that this is a valid transcendental path. However, it is very difficult and wrought with so many challenges and takes hundreds of lifetimes to perfect and make progress on. We'll get to reincarnation later. And the highest elevation of your consciousness through this mental, speculative, philosophical path comes to the final snare of illusion, which is the thinking that you are God, which of course is false. And by that hubris, by that pride, we fall down harder than we did before. So mental speculation can only get one so far. If you really want to become perfect in life, then the descending process, receiving knowledge submissively from the bona fide sources, that is the prescribed method of the scriptures to make life perfect. For example, you're sick, you go to the hospital, the doctor tells you what's wrong, gives you the medicine, gives you the treatment, and so you are receiving, this knowledge is descending from the doctor on how you can improve your life. The ascending process, or the mental speculative process, and that former, I should say, process is also devotion, but the ascending process of mental speculations is trying to figure out, oh, I know what's wrong with me, I'll do my own thing to get better. I'll create my own medicine. And maybe you might get lucky and figure out what you have and cure your own disease. I don't know. But it's recommended you go to a doctor. You're sick, bro. It's a little wiser. For example, you can guess all day long who your father is, but if you really want to know who your daddy is, you ask your mama. Your mama knows. She's the authoritative source of knowledge on who your daddy is. So if you ask your mom, then you'll have perfect knowledge. If she's telling the truth, of course. Don't know the family drama. But that's of course the example. Guessing versus receiving. So the devotees, we don't make up things. Instead, we receive knowledge from the bona fide sources. And there's ways we can fact check what is legitimate knowledge or not. And these threefold check system of verifying spiritual knowledge to be true or not is called, again, this is the Sanskrit term, Guru Sadhu Sastra, or Sadhu Guru Sastra, or Sastra Sadhu Guru, however way you want to put the three. Mother Taj said Guru Sadhu Sastra. I think it rings off the tongue a little better. And basically what that means is, if you hear spiritual knowledge and you're unsure whether or not it is true or false, then you put on your thinking cap, you be a good researcher, good detective, and you find out, can I find this teaching backed up by all three of these sources? Can I find it taught in the revealed scriptures given by God? Can I find it also taught by bona fide spiritual masters who descend in disciplic succession? And can I also find it taught by the revered holy saints? So, Shastras, the scriptures, Guru, the spiritual masters, and Sadhu, the saints. So if all three sources are teaching the same thing, giving the same knowledge, then you're on safe ground. Then you can bank on it. Then you can put that in your research paper, peer-reviewed, credible, Or in spiritual life, what that means is now we can apply that in our life with full faith and conviction. And through the application of it, the practice of it, we will come to the realization of it and come to love. Oh boy, I only went through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I only went through a quarter of them and we're already out of time. Oh my goodness. And I know, my apologies, Vrai. I said we're going to cover the Trinity. As you can see, it's last on this list. So stay tuned. Tune in next time. So, so let me pause it here real fast. 1 second. Okay. All right. I know we didn't cover that whole list. My goodness, time flew. Does anyone happen to have any questions or comments so far?
Do you want to welcome to the new person?
Oh, you can do that.
I did. He's on the VC.
Oh, he's on VC. Okay, well, welcome, new friend. Oh, yeah, I see now. Hello.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm interested on your view specifically in accordance to, philosophy. Because you mentioned that, yes, there is a way to kind of achieve by cross-referencing information to reach a conclusion that, yes, you can find the truth. You just say that it was difficult, that it was pretty hard. And then, so I asked myself, do you think philosophy helps support religion?
Does philosophy support religion? I guess it depends on the philosophy, but remember, if we're using the definition of religion being the relinking process to come again to God, and the ultimate goal of religion is the state of being, of perfection, of spiritualization, which is love of God. It's a state of being, ecstatic love, and of course, returning to God now and forever, and at the end of this body, not staying in this world, but going home to God. So does philosophy help to that end? Now that would be that's the real question. Will it bring you closer to love of God? And that is the lens in which devotees see everything. Not, is this good or is it bad? Not this duality. Their focus is, will this help me come closer to loving God? Or will this be an obstacle to self-realization and love of God? So it depends, I guess you could say, on what that philosophy is. And you can always tell whether it will be beneficial or not to your spiritual life by looking carefully at the source of that knowledge. For example, if the source of such philosophy was a person who was fully enlightened, fully blissful and ecstatic love of God, they were a great devotee, Mahatma, Paramahamsa, then perhaps that philosophy will be helpful, if it is in accordance with the knowledge from the revealed scriptures. Again, there are a lot of teachings out there that people like because in their mind it makes them feel good. They just like it. Right? Oh, I see someone typing. I'll get to you in a moment. Oh, I think there's a conversation happening in the chat.
That's Adam and
Okay, I'll get to that in a moment, guys. I'll adjust it. Oh, what was I just saying? Oops, my bad.
yeah, I got this.
Oh, womp womp. Hey, no talking in class now. No chatting. You're distracting me. Just messing.
Yeah, like don't be on your phone, right?
Oh no. Well, you're good. I'm joking. Yeah. I myself am a lowly, fallen, conditioned fool. So I'm trying my absolute best to share teachings from the scriptures as received in these bona fide channels, Guru Sadhu Sastra, that relate to all of these terms that we're covering today. Not my own personal ideas. Nobody cares what I think. Who cares? I don't even care what I think, because what I think from my stupid head, ain't gonna help you or me or nothing like that. I'm a silly fool, so I completely depend on the mercy of my God, my Guru, the scriptures, everything, and their, of course, unlimited eternal guidance, right? You guys are still typing away there. So depends on the source. So if the source is of God, if the knowledge is from God, and the so-called philosopher is a pure lover of God who is just living out the scriptures, then yes, that philosophy or those teachings will be conducive to fulfilling the aim of life, which is love of God. And let me see here. Our new friend Adam, he says, what is the stance on the Platonists and the Neoplatonists? They seem to align with religion. And what is the stance on deeply contemplating scripture, trying to find secrets inside the scriptures like the Sufis and the Christian mystics did? Okay, so let me get onto that. So I didn't know what Neoplatonism is until just recently, thanks to Vry. He put some, actually part of our definition of terms, there was 4 of them that I didn't understand what he meant by them, and I asked, and I found out it had to do with certain philosophical schools, such as this one. And from what I understood, it was speculative. I didn't find any knowledge that coincided with the teachings of the revealed scriptures. So it was on the speculative, philosophical side, not necessarily devotion, not the descending, receiving knowledge from God, but the ascending, trying to figure things out. Now, on the flip side of what you just said, Adam, what is the stance on deeply contemplating scripture, finding the secrets inside the scriptures like the Sufis and Christian mystics did? Well, funny you should ask. That is actually what devotees do. So devotees, or I should probably add that to the list of words to define. Devotees are surrendered souls unto God who give their life unto devotional service, are all mystics, because through revelation within the heart, by the blessing of their spiritual masters and by the purifying practices that they do, spiritual practice such as chanting God's holy names, hearing God's scriptures, remembering God always, do we come to realize all knowledge within the heart. And we'll get to this. I think it's going to be a next class thing. So the nature of the soul is eternal, full of conscious knowledge, and ecstatically blissful. This is the nature of the soul. And the secrets, or you can say the inner meaning, the inner purport of God's message, of the scriptures, all these mysteries are all revealed in the heart of the surrendered devotee who follows faithfully on the path made straight. And that descending, receiving knowledge from the bona fide sources, and in all humility, being of loving service and applying that knowledge in your heart. So the great mystics, such as, the Sufis, for example, well, what was the practice of the Sufis, do you know? They chanted the holy names of God. What about the Gaudiya Vaishnavas? And their ecstatic bliss, chanting, dancing names of God, they too were chanting God's names. They were engaged in devotional service. Devotional service, which is ninefold, should probably add that to the list of words, is how we purify our heart and mind of all those contaminations, all that illusion, all those defects, and awaken to all these mysteries. For the devotee of God on the path, there are no more mysteries. Everything is revealed by revelation, by the mercy of God through these practices, through this path. And I see the chat's going pretty busy. Do 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 do. Let's see, what's everyone saying? Do we also do similarly with the text about Mother Tasha too, deeply analyzing her words and so on? Yes, why not? Because everything in the Religion of Love book, everything, isn't new. All in great love has been given before. Like it says in the book Ecclesiastes in the Old Testament, there is nothing new under the sun. Everything Mother Atasha is teaching, everything in the Religion of Love book, has been given before. You can find the same teachings in all the revealed scriptures, in the heart of them. Nothing new. So that's the thing about a real spiritual master, as opposed to a philosopher. The bona fide spiritual master, and we'll get to the qualifications next. I don't want to spoil it too soon. You can ask on the server, why not? It's in the book too. So the real spiritual master doesn't make anything new up. The real spiritual master is just sharing the message of God exactly as they received it from their master. Exactly as they received it from their master and their master and their master, which is non-different from what the scriptures say. So that's another thing. The spiritual master doesn't teach anything that is new. They just teach what is true. So yes, you can contemplate on the teachings of the Religion of Love or any of God's scriptures, the real ones, not the man-made ones. And we have a short list on the server, and that's all well and good. And Vry is asking, oh my gosh, you posted a bunch of stuff. Vry, could you unmute? What is all this that you posted in the chat? I see a wall of text here.
These are typically secretive groups that practice spiritual practices and the occults. So I wanted to see what you thought about, for example, the Jesuits, right? Which are a historical group, as well as the Freemasons over a span of generation, who have been known to practice occult magic and sacrifice at times to gods such as Baal and Moloch.
Okay, well, here, I'll do one better, actually. I'll be the type of teacher that helps a student figure things out on their own. Instead of give you the fish, teach you how to fish. Remember those threefold check systems? Guru, Sadhu, Sastra?
Well, the thing is, I was going to say, I know what the majority of these groups do. I just want your perspective on it personally.
Well, if the things that they believe in, or teach, or follow, or whatever, if you can find that same knowledge backed up by scriptures, by spiritual masters in disciplic succession, and holy saints, all agreeing, then again, you're on safe ground. But if these groups, these cults, these sects, these whatever, are teaching or doing things that are not credibly backed up by these three sources, well, do the math, be intelligent, put on your thinking cap, be the good detective, and you'll see what is man-made and what is God-made. What is God-given versus what's man-made. And anything made by man ain't going to help you get to God. Only what is given by God will help you reach God.
It's more so on the perspective of these individual groups essentially being the cults. It's the view essentially on demonology, right? So, I don't remember the first demon on your list. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, I guess, yes, angels, demons, they are on the list. I guess we're going to get to them in future weekends. I thought we'd get all this done in one day, but I think this gives us something to go on for the month, I suppose. Adam's asking, how much do you think we don't understand yet from the scriptures? And what's the stance on occultism? How much do we not understand from the scriptures? Well, I can't honestly say. Only God can understand the heart of another person. So I cannot say. I could not say how much, enlightened your heart is versus mine or someone else's. I don't know. That's between you and the Lord. But I think in general, I'd say 99.999% of us do not understand 99.99% of the scriptures. I think it's actually pretty low. It seems like if you see the world today, how degraded it is. Seriously. And funny enough, and again, as Vry was asking about demons, demonology, and we're going to get to demons and angels and what is all that about in future class. Funny enough, in the Vedic scriptures, which are very, very scientific scriptures, especially Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam, which means the supreme science of God. It's amazing scripture. And Bhagavad Gita, the song of God. According to Bhagavatam, it pretty much lumps humanity into just two categories. Just two. Deva and Asura. That's it. Deva means divine or demigod, or one who is following God, his commandments, his scriptures, and serving God. And the Asuras, or the demonic mentality, those who are not serving God, but serving themselves. So it's all about whom you serve. Serving God or serving to get gold. For God's pleasure or for the pleasure of my own senses and bodily relations, their senses too, more or less. So by that definition, again, 99.99% of the population is atheistic. You're like, what? I know. Sorry. Don't mean to trigger or offend anybody, but by that definition of the Bhagavatam, unless we are surrendered devotees of God, living for the Lord's pleasure, carrying out his commandments, his scriptural injunctions, trying to serve and please him and his servants, we would be in the atheist category, because the majority of our energy and will in life is to serve ourselves. And let's be honest, the world is pretty selfish. Everyone's just looking after themselves, make money, take care of their families, their politics, their community, etc., etc., etc. Yes, there's some religion, some religiosity, sure, in culture, right? But it's like someone working in a bank, and he's counting out the money. Some for me, some for God, some for me, some for God, when everything is God's. So it's all about consciousness. Consciousness, one's intentions, that determines everything in your life. And how you live is a good indicator of how much we've understood Scripture. He also asks, what's the stance on occultism? Well, occult, I'm sure, is, all that man-made, dark kind of stuff, right? Witchcraft, nonsense, really. I guess you could say it's nonsense. That would be my stance on that. And did Mother Natasha ever speak about eschatology? Eschatology? I don't even know what that is. So I would say no. Because it doesn't recall. Vry says, can you explain God through science, through the study of philosophy? Well, how about the science of God? You can explain God through the science of God, through study of God's scientific scriptures. And they are scientific. If you take A, B, and C and do D, you get to E. This is actually a scientific process of spiritual realization. If you accept the knowledge from the bona fide sources, apply it, do it, you'll get the result. This is the science. So for example, and I'll even use it in an actual materially scientific type of analogy. Let's say if I am a scientist working in a laboratory, and we just did this big experiment, and we've come up with this unique chemical reaction. Wow, it's a cool reaction. Wow, it's a breakthrough, right? And we published the lab report, and it's out in the world now. And now any laboratory, any competent laboratory around the world with the same equipment, if they follow exactly the experiment, the steps, everything perfectly from that lab report, then they should get the exact same reaction, right? So that's the science. what God gives to us, if you actually do it without deviation, don't take things out, don't put things in, don't tweak the formula, don't mess with it, just follow it exactly as it's given. Then you'll get the result, which is love of God. So this is the science of God realization. Now the problem is that we always want to mess things up. This is, again, the defects of the mind, the cheating propensity. We always want to screw things up and do things our own way. This is our hubris. This is our pride, false ego. We think we can do things better. We don't want to submit. We don't want to surrender. We don't want to be a lowly servant. We want to be the top dog. We want to be the lord of material nature. This is the material illusion. And in that, we do not surrender unto God's message wholeheartedly. And most of religion today, or religiosity today, isn't the pure message God has given, but all the tweaks and twists and manipulation of man over time to make it suit his mind, rather than change himself and purify his mind for God's pleasure. Lots going on. This chat is busy. I.e., the end of the world, sort of like how the book of Revelation does. What is the stance on that? Oh, the end of the world. Okay. Well, that's taught very clearly in the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's cyclical. This universe goes through cycles of creation, maintenance, annihilation. Creation, maintenance, annihilation. It's a whole cycle. So things are destroyed, things are created again by God. And it goes into quite detail into how that all takes place. But the important thing is how we break the cycle of birth and death and come home to God, end our suffering. That's the most important thing. And of course, knowing how God created the world is wonderful, and it helps one, again, have great reverence for God and hearken unto his greatness and follow his teachings, of course. Let's see what else I would post here, but it said there is white magic. I think some Christians did this. Practices that are hidden in the scriptures that lead to gnosis, knowledge of God, and what to be expected after death, or a return to the One. So I don't know about white magic, but how you come to realized knowledge of God. Remember, secondhand knowledge is knowledge of others in the scriptures. Realized knowledge that you actually experience in your heart, that happens through spiritual practices, purifying practices. And I'll give you some example of the difference. So, secondhand knowledge is you believing that you can climb this mountain. I believe I can do it. Now, wisdom, realization of that is you're already at the top of the mountain. You did it, and yeah, I know I can climb this mountain. Here I am. Or on the flip side, for someone who's never tasted honey before, I could explain to you all the details of the taste of honey, its sweetness, its flowery aroma, its texture, its viscosity. I could explain all these things of honey to you, and you can become an expert in explaining honey to others. But if you've never actually tasted the honey yourself, then you don't really know. So that's the difference between knowledge and wisdom, or secondhand knowledge and realized knowledge. You experience it, you taste it for yourself. So how do we taste the experience of love of God? How do we experience the eternal, ecstatic, spiritual? Well, the good thing is that that's already our nature. That's who we are. We are spiritual beings. Just presently, we are covered over like a veil, like a big giant snowball from an avalanche. So it's like the sun is shining, but big cloud cover comes, and you say, oh, there's no sun today. But the sun is there. You just don't have direct experience of it. Same thing. All of our spiritual, original consciousness, our eternality, our ecstatic bliss in our relationship with God is there. It's just covered over. All you have to do is remove the covering for your true self to shine. And all spiritual practices given by God are just a cleansing and a clearing of all that covering, all that illusion, all that ignorance that covers our real self. Another analogy is gold that's buried in a mountain of dirt. So the gold is valuable, it's pure, it's wonderful, and we're all after the gold. The gold doesn't need to become anything, it's gold. But you have to get your hands dirty and dig to reach that gold. And then once you reach the gold, polish it off, there it is. And that's the same with us. We're a spirit soul buried in the material energy, first encased in this body. And we'll get into that later, future class, seems like. So spiritual realization is basically you cleaned off all the dirt, all the covering that kept you from realizing your real self and experiencing the eternal nature of God versus this material nature, which is limited and full of suffering. And the best way of doing that, of course, is chanting the holy names of God. That's what we do. That's our main practice in devotional service. Hearing, chanting, and remembering. And we have 3 channels. So our new friend who joined, there is a channel for each one of those. Hearing, chanting, remembering. And the spiritual practices category. Definitely check them out. Also in the Religion of Love book. And I see while I'm talking, Vry is texting away. What's he saying? Oh, and what's to be expected after death? Well, that depends. I cannot say. Depends on the person. In short, the gist of it is, where we go at the time of death is as we desire and as we deserve. And that's the short answer. There's of course a longer answer to that, but that is the truth. As we desire and as we deserve. Unless we make our life perfect in love of God, it'll be back in this universe for show. Faux show. Vry is saying, you cannot know something if you cannot justify it for it to be true and have belief. These are the 3 components for knowledge. Without one, you fall into belief rather than knowledge. You can believe to know, but you cannot believe and know at the same time. It's contradictory in most cases. That is why you have terminology such as faith. You must try your belief through faith and conviction, because in most cases people do not know. Well, that's, as we said, greater than faith is truth. So faith is the good beginning. You got to have some faith in the beginning. Some faith. Otherwise, why else would you put your time and energy for something that is to get something you can't yet experience, right? So what do we do with all of our time? Trying to enjoy, right? Eat nice food and get nice comfort, get some entertainment, try and get some money, Whereas spiritual practices, hearing, chanting, remembering, spending a couple hours chanting God's names, that's not going to pay the bills. That's not going to, get dinner done. No. So why would we do that? Why are we going to chant? Why are we going to study and try and practice the scriptures? So if we start off with faith, and the reason why is because in faith, we believe that if I do these things, I will get something much, much greater, which is, of course, going to be ultimate happiness, the supreme pleasure and love of God. So, but greater than faith is truth. You have to do something. You have to work. You have to sacrifice, tapasya. Brahma, the creator of the universe, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, when no one else was around, he hears one verse, one word in the void, tapasya. So he understood that in order to have realization, to gain experience, knowledge, he has to sacrifice. He has to work towards it. It's not just going to come magically on its own. So we have to work towards it. And like I said, if you want to reach the gold buried in the mountain of dirt, you're going to have to dig and get your hands dirty. You can talk. Oh, there's gold there. There's gold there. But unless you do the work, you're never going to reach it. So greater than faith is truth. You start by faith. And the more you practice under the guidance of a real spiritual master with real knowledge, you get the actual experience. And you too can become a saintly lover of God. Experience inner peace, love, joy, ever increasing. Will we ever get a full-fledged class regarding death and the afterlife? Well, sure, why not? We're here every week. There's so much to discuss. In fact, we can make that a whole class, actually, coming up soon. But I think we're all out of time right now. I think I even went over. I forgot to start the timer in the second half. So we'll have to end there. My sincere apologies. We didn't make much headway in that list. But I was also, off my chest, I'm like, what am I going to give class on? So now we know we have, okay, for the next day or next weekend or two, we're going to keep going through this same list. So we're going to go through it little by little. So thank you all for joining us. My goodness, 3 new friends have joined us. That's so cool. What timing. No such thing as coincidences. So welcome. I'm your humble servant. I'm just trying to be of service. Please my spiritual master, please the Lord God, and offer knowledge that I have received unto anyone interested, so to help you in your spiritual life in any way possible. So you're all, Adam says, very interesting, thank you. Rai says, thank you. Well, you're all most welcome. I'm benefited by all of your association. So thank you for joining us. It's my pleasure to be of service. And I hope I see you guys all next week. So all glories to Mother Natasha, all glories to Religion of Love, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the Lord God. Jai. Jai, jai, jai. And